Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to hold off just a couple more minutes while some other people come in, and I think they're also having some audio issues. But so hang tight for just a couple more minutes, and we'll get started. But thank you for being here. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming to our spring edition of the Water Quality Advisory Workgroup meeting put on by the Water Quality Division here at the TCEQ. My name is Greg Easley, and I'll be your moderator today. I manage the Water Quality Assessment section in the division. And we'll start out with introducing ourselves, those of us here around the table, and then we'll get a mic going out to y'all in the audience so y'all can introduce yourselves, just name and affiliation, if you don't mind. So, again, I've started with myself, so I guess, Monica, would you mind starting at that end, and we'll go around this way?
Good afternoon. My name is Monica Baez, and I'm an industrial permit writer.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Rocha. I'm an engineer with the Plans and Specs review team.
Hello, my name is Louis Heron, and I'm with Plans and Specs, water reuse, and a few other things.
Good afternoon. My name is Jaspinder Singh. I am an industrial permit writer focusing on oil and gas permits at TCEQ. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca Villalba, and I am the team leader for the Stormwater team.
Hello all. Robert Sadler, Deputy Director, Water Quality Division.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Erica Crespo. I'm the Assistant Deputy Director of the Water Quality Division.
Hi, I'm Peter Schaefer, Team Leader, the Standards Implementation Team here at TCEQ.
Good afternoon. This is Firoz Wahora, Municipal Permit Team Leader.
My name is Cole Gray. I'm an industrial permit writer focusing on oil and gas.
And my name is Danielle Monroe. I work with the CIA team on the division support team.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Hill, and I work in the water quality on the CIA team.
My name is Lee Flores, and I'm the team lead for the Customer Assistance and Information team.
Tammy West, Wastewater Regulatory Manager for Austin Water.
Susan Meckel, Water Quality Protection at the Lower Colorado River Authority.
Hi, Art Rodriguez with Russell Rodriguez Hyde Bullock.
Tyler Yorth, City of San Marcos.
Kara Denny, I'm with Burns McDonald's, an environmental consulting company.
Paulina Williams with Baker Botts.
Marty Kelly, Texas Parks and Wildlife Water Resources.
Stephen Connor, Interim Wastewater Director of the City of Garland.
Meg Pierce Walsh, Water Quality Permitting Practice Leader, Plummer Associates.
Ashley Lewis, Team Leader for the Water Quality Permitting Team at Plummer.
Chris Peters, Environmental Manager, Railroad Commission.
Jesse Spears, Lloyd Gosling Law Firm.
Sorry, the lights come on. Matthew Daniel, Wastewater Permit Section Manager.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. And also thank you to all those who are watching on the web. Unfortunately, I have to apologize. I understand that we're having audio issues with the webcast. There will be captions available, but unfortunately no audio. The good news, though, is that if you are watching online and you're wanting to catch all the details, we are recording the meeting, which will include the audio that you can go back and watch afterwards and catch every word that was said. So, but we do apologize for that. But again, thank you all for joining us here in person. This obviously is our first time back with this stakeholder group doing an in-person meeting, so we appreciate you coming. Feel free to spread the word that we're back in person with these meetings, and we'll continue to have them on a quarterly basis as we always do. Before we get into the agenda items, I just wanted to mention a couple things. For those who haven't registered yet for this meeting, please be sure and do that before you leave. For those who are watching on the webcast and can hopefully get this information through the captions, if you'd like to get registered for the meeting, you can send an email to us at our outreach mailbox, which is outreach@tceq.texas.gov. And if you just put the acronym of the meeting, WQAWG, in the subject line, and then provide your contact information, we can get you registered. And you can also request to get on to join the group, get on the mailing list. So, all right, with that, we can go ahead and get started with our updates that we want to provide to you today. We're going to start with some wastewater permitting process updates, and Robert's going to start us off.
Hey, good afternoon, all. Again, Robert Sadler, Deputy Director, Water Quality Division. If you've been a regular attendee at these Water Quality Advisory Work Group meetings, you've definitely heard me talk about the Streamlining Initiatives, and so I apologize for any of you who this is a rerun, but you're going to hear a lot of the same stuff. Hopefully some of it will be new. If not, it'll be a refresher. So over the past 12 months, there's been a division-wide focus on examining our permitting processes and seeking opportunities for efficiencies or removing redundancies. And we continue those efforts to address backlogged applications and streamline our permitting process to support reduced time frames. As part of those efforts, we've developed an internal tracking tool that displays real-time information on permit status. It's a dashboard that's continually being improved, but has already helped the division more effectively track assignments and allocate resources. Additionally, we've reduced internal time frames for permit processing, set some pretty aggressive goals for ourselves, and holding ourselves accountable for those. We are conducting pre-application meetings for most new and major amendment applications. We are also encouraging other electronic processes. We've pretty consistently requested copies of electronic applications from applicants. These support concurrent reviews from different teams, and Erica is going to talk a little bit more about those in the presentation after mine. Email has also steadily replaced paper correspondence in WQD, except where the rules require certified mail. And this, the email reduces delays in communication between Water Quality Division and our customers and supports faster resolution of questions or requests for information. What we call pre-technical reviews are also becoming the norm. And so when we say pre-technical reviews, what we mean is technical staff are conducting a cursory review while an application is being administratively reviewed, which allows us to get a head start on identifying deficiencies and working with applicants to resolve them. We also continue to map processes as part of TCEQ's overall lean effort and brainstorm modifications and improvements. Part of this streamlining effort also includes increased accountability for applicants. So applicants are being pretty regularly returned when applicants or their consultants are non-responsive or fail to provide complete responses to notices of deficiency within prescribed timeframes. We're also holding applicants more accountable for NORI and NAPTI publishing requirements, and we've returned applications when there's been a failure to comply with the requirements for timely publishing. On the other side of stakeholder engagement, we've taken steps to increase engagement with our stakeholder groups by providing the routine updates here at Water Quality Advisory Work Group. We've also created what we call the Stakeholder Subcommittee off of this work group, and the purpose of that is a forum for more focused discussion. We had our first Stakeholder Subcommittee meeting in Q2 of FY22. The topic was permit streamlining, and we heard concerns and questions, suggestions from our stakeholders. Members of this broad stakeholder group that wanted to participate were there and provided us good information. And we've already begun to address some of the concerns that we heard. A couple examples. We heard from a couple people about those pre-application meetings that I mentioned and them not really being sure of what they should bring to those meetings to maximize value. And so we developed what we call a cheat sheet, which is just a list of material that we recommend applications bring with them or provide prior to those pre-application meetings so that we can start reviewing it before we ever sit down with them at a meeting and give them good, actionable feedback or identify any showstoppers that would otherwise come up during the formal review. Another concern that we're actively working to address that came up in our stakeholder subcommittee meeting and outside of that forum is our reduced draft permit review timeframes. So I don't know what was happening prior to my tenure in this position, but I think we were pretty flexible. As part of the streamlining effort, we've given a standard 7 days for draft permit review. We've heard some concerns, I don't know how else to put it, about that 7-day turnaround time, and also our coordination with applicants leading up to that draft permit phase. And so we are discussing with our permitting teams the best way to resolve those, how to increase communications leading up to that draft review phase to make sure that everyone who needs to see it is on the email that we send out and that the applicant or their consultant has a heads up that it's coming so that they can make plans to review it. I want to talk just a little bit about the results because we really did, at least from my perspective, hit it pretty hard back in June 2021. It's now June 2022. We have significantly reduced our inventory of backlogged applications. In June 2021, I think we were sitting at approximately 400 backlogged applications, and that would be anything that's beyond 300 or 330 days old. Some of the applications were as old as 10 years they've been sitting with the Water Quality Division. At present time, I think we're down to somewhere between 100 and 150, so significant progress there. And even that 150 value, many of those applications have moved out of Water Quality Division over to the Office of Chief Clerk and are in varying stages of completion on their final leg of the journey to issuance. And so we're proud of the progress that we've made in moving these previously stalled applications. As far as new applications received, all applications received since September 1st, 2022. It's still too early to tell. Those have just started kind of working their way through the last part of the process in the last 3 or 4 months. So small sample size, but right now it looks like we have shown some promise with a healthy on-time percentage. So we're seeing some of the fruits of our labor, and we're proud of that. On the horizon, we are identifying opportunities for some new general permits. We're currently engaged in a couple different GP projects. One is for TLAP, GP option for TLAP. The other is one for small domestic discharges. Both of these are still in kind of the feasibility study phase of the general permit process, trying to find ways to make, especially TLAP, work in the general permit format while addressing the kind of site-specific variability across this very large state. And then the small domestic discharge is even more in the infant stages, but we do have those two projects underway, and general permits are great for us and the regulated community because they provide a streamlined permitting option for our customers, and they reduce the overall permitting workload for our staff. Another thing we're working on is a tool to assist us in our efforts in response to comments. So it probably will come as no surprise to y'all, but some of the applications we receive, we get thousands of comments on, and there's a lot of staff time that's devoted to organizing, categorizing, drafting responses to these comments that we receive on applications. And so we are developing a tool that should help automate certain tasks, or at least streamline certain tasks in that response to comment effort, which will free up staff hours to be devoted to other projects or day-to-day permitting workload. So how can our regulated community support these wastewater streamlining efforts? You can take advantage of the opportunity to schedule a pre-application meeting if you are someone who prepares applications for Water Quality Division's review. This will allow you to discuss the project with permitting staff, have your questions answered before you submit an application. As I said earlier, we can identify issues that can be resolved outside of the formal review time frame, and we have that handy cheat sheet that we can provide that'll help you come prepared or provide us what we need before we sit down. Submitting complete applications. This one is very critical. Complete and accurate application submittal reduces the odds of notices of deficiency, which prolong the permitting process. It's also going to reduce the odds that an application gets returned. So we love complete and accurate applications. Respond timely and completely to any request for information. If you do get a notice of deficiency, faster responses are always better. At the very least, please respond by the prescribed deadline. It's typically 30 days in the first NOD. Publish NORIs and NAPDs within required timeframes. This is a big one, and it eats up a lot of time. Our permitting staff devote a lot of time to following up and essentially being like debt collectors on outstanding NORIs and NAPDs. So if you are responsible for getting that done, please do it timely. And if your clients are responsible for it, please encourage your clients to do it in a timely fashion. The last way that you can help is just be kind to permitting staff. They're under a lot of pressure from various directions with these streamlining initiatives, sunset. We got legislative session that's coming up right after sunset, increasing volume of workload, increasing public meeting requests, contested case hearings. Growth is great for the state. It definitely puts a strain on staff here. Similar to staff across the agency, Water Quality Division staff pride themselves on the work. They take pride in the work that they do, right? They take pride in solving problems and providing great customer service. So know that they're all doing their very best. They're kind of under the gun at all times, and so you can help us help you by just being kind to them, being understanding. So I'll pause here. Any questions or comments on our streamlining efforts before I move on to the next short topic of discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you for that update. On the e-applications, and you talked about emails replacing the snail mail process. Are copies of those emails or NODs going to be included in the permit file for public viewing?
They should be, yes.
Okay, and then on the subcommittee for the wastewater permitting, how was that committee determined, or is there a list of those members?
At our last Water Quality Advisory Work Group, we asked people to send an email to outreach@tcq.texas.gov and mention that you want to be a part of this subcommittee. I'll have to go back and look. I think when we did eventually schedule the meeting, we just sent it to the entire Water Quality Advisory Work Group email list. And so if you're on that list, you should get notice of those meetings.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, comments? Nope. Yeah.
Just interrupt real quick. I apologize. I meant to say this on the front end, but yeah, we are certainly encouraging questions after each topic is presented as you have them. And I did also want to mention for those who are watching online, and hopefully the message gets out to you since we were having audio problems, but if you have any questions for us while the meeting is going on, feel free to email those questions to our outreach mailbox. And again, that's outreach@tcq.texas.gov. Thank you. Sorry, Robert. Go ahead.
Thanks, Greg. The next topic I wanted to talk about, and this will be real quick, I'm really actually just teeing up future discussion, is regionalization guidance. So on April 18th, 2022, the Commission considered a petition for rulemaking and ultimately declined to proceed with rulemaking. However, the division was tasked with continuing to develop improved guidance on regionalization. Currently, guidance on regionalization is found in our municipal application instructions, application forms, and on TCQ's website. We are embarking on an effort to create a centralized guidance document to support both new facilities and existing facilities. If you're familiar with Water Supply Division, they have RG 551, which is their regionalization guidance document. We intend to model ours on that format. And our goal, our directive is to return to the Commission to present the guidance document at the end of calendar year 2022. As part of the effort, we plan to engage stakeholders and consider their suggestions and concerns regarding our current resources on regionalization so that we can then perhaps incorporate those suggestions into our new guidance document. And the way we intend to do that is to utilize that stakeholder subcommittee that I previously mentioned. As I said, it serves as a forum for more focused discussion topics and back and forth with our stakeholders. And so I would invite any of our interested stakeholders to participate in that. We don't yet have a date scheduled for that stakeholder subcommittee meeting. We're currently discussing potential dates and identifying meeting space. This space is going to be out of service in July and part of August, I think, for renovations. Once a date has been identified, we will send out an email to the Water Quality Advisory Work Group mailing list, so keep an eye on that if you're interested. And that's really all I have to say on that right now. I just wanted to put it out there for all interested parties to just give you a heads up that that's coming, and keep an eye out. And we'd love to hear from you at that next meeting. Any questions or comments on that? No? Well, I appreciate your time. That concludes my updates, and I'll push it back to Greg.
All right. Thank you so much, Robert. Next update, I believe, will be done by Erica.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Robert, for that great update. So I have the privilege of talking about, I can't talk right now. Electronic, that's how you say the word. I'm talking about electronic submissions. And so I'm pleased to report that since our last Water Quality Advisory Work Group meeting, we received a total of 157 application submissions in general, and 83 of those included an accompanying electronic submittal via our agency's secure file transfer protocol server. And so that's the system that we have in place. So 83 out of 159, that's over 50% increase that we've been seeing. So on behalf of the Water Quality Division, I'd like to thank you all so much. Those of you in attendance who submitted electronically, those of you who are watching virtually, I would look into the camera, but I think that'd just be weird. But just know that we all appreciate that submission because it makes our job so much easier. So all staff in the division really appreciate you guys accommodating our requests for electronic submissions. Right now it is voluntary, but we, like Robert said, take pride in our work, the public service that we provide to the state of Texas. It's important that we do that at a high quality level in a time efficient way. And so receiving electronic applications allows us to do that. So if you are doing it, please continue. And if you aren't doing it, come on aboard. It's not too scary. But if you guys have any questions or concerns about that, please feel free to ask us. We're here. We have a whole system in place. There's information and resources on our division website. And yeah, that's all that I have to say. But thank y'all. Back to you, Greg.
Thank you, Erica. Any questions for Erica? All right. I guess the next topic, were you also covering the mandatory pre-applications meeting topic, or is that?
Okay. Off the cuff, because I didn't come prepared. Robert already mentioned this about, our mandatory pre-application meetings, and I know that we've been talking about this in the past before, but for all new applicants or major amendment applicants, please schedule a pre-application meeting for us. You'd be surprised at how easy it can be to omit some things. We're just going to say, not intentionally. It can be omitted unintentionally, and it delays the permitting process. And, like we previously said, our public service to the state of Texas is really important. And so having those pre-application meetings up front, especially if you're new or if you're coming in for a major amendment, which if you have a question about that, our staff are very friendly. We'll answer all your questions if it's a major amendment or a minor amendment. And of course, Feroz is here if you're in person, and y'all can talk to him, or Lewis and Paul and Greg. Everybody. Okay, so anyway, major amendment applications and new applications, please come in for a pre-application meeting. It is mandatory, okay? Now, we're not throwing people away, but if we have to, that's on Robert. All right, that's all, y'all. Thank you.
Thanks again, Erica. Any other questions on that pre-application meeting topic? All right, great. Next, we're going to go over to Monica for some Title VI compliance topics.
Thank you, Greg. Good afternoon. I'm just going to provide a short overview of new changes to the permitting process based on on Chapter 39 and Title VI requirements. On August 2021, TCEQ implemented new rule requirements related to in Title 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 39, relating to public notice requirements. Additionally, TCEQ is in the process of implementing the agency's language access plan and public participation plan to meet requirements in Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. This implementation is the result of the informal resolution with EPA and to meet Title VI requirements. This implementation impacts all permit applications subject to Chapter 39, 30 Texas Administrative Code, public notice requirements that are administratively complete on or after May 1st, 2022. The following is a summary of the changes implemented to the permitting process. Applicants are now required to submit a plain language summary if the applicant or the permittee is subject to Chapter 39 regulations for public notices. The plain language summary should be no more than 2 pages long. It should provide a function of the facility. It should provide emitted or discharged pollutants coming from the facility. And also the permittee has to provide information on how the applicant will control those pollutants so that the proposed plan will not have an adverse impact to human health or the environment. The plain language summary must also be translated if you must meet translated requirements in accordance with Chapter 39 in Section 39.426C. Applications have been updated on our website for industrial and for municipal to have this plain language summaries. They're also provided in English and Spanish. All applicants which are subject to the alternative language notice requirements in 30 Texas Administrative Code, Section 39.426, and are or will be declared administratively complete on or after May 1st, 2022, must provide translated copies of both notices, NORI and NAPTI notices. These notices have to be provided in alternative languages. Right now, we have copies on our website for Spanish and for Spanish only, but I just wanted to note that the applicants are required to provide the translated NORI or NAPTI on the language that it is required. But at this point, we only have those translations in Spanish. TCEQ will post alternative languages notice on the TCEQ website in addition to any newspaper publications completed by the applicant. Additionally, although it is not required for the plain language summary to be published in the newspaper, TCEQ will also be posting plain language summaries, including alternative language plain language summaries when applicable on the TCEQ website. It is the responsibility of each applicant to provide the accurate translation of the NORI and the NAPTI in the appropriate alternative language. Sorry, that's just a repeat of what I just said, that the applicant will need to provide those languages in NORI and NAPTI. TCEQ's Office of the Chief Clerk will continue to send out the notice package for newspaper publications. Applicants might not publish the notice until you receive those instructions from the Chief Clerk's office. So please do not publish your NORI or NAPTI until you get that package from the Chief Clerk's office. Applicants with alternative language requirements must publish alternative language for public meetings as required. If you're subject to that Chapter 39, you'll be required to publish your public meeting notice in Spanish or another language. If we receive a request 2 weeks before the public meeting that a translator service needs to be provided, the applicant will be required to provide that translator or a translator person or service in the public meeting. And that's all my updates that I have at this point for the notices and Title VI requirements.
Great, thank you, Monica. Any questions for Monica?
Hi, Monica. Tammy West with Austin Water. I read the alternative language plan that TCEQ has, and I'm kind of confused about which languages are required to be published. It used to be according to what ESL program is in the schools that surround, and I believe, and don't quote me because it's been a while since I read it, but 5% of the population, if there's more than 5% of a certain population, then you have to translate in that language. That's a lot for Austin. So my question is, and I thought I kind of grasped this from the plan, but I'm not quite sure. We submit that translation to TCEQ, and TCEQ will post it on their website. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yes, right now we're looking into that, about the 5%, that if right now the rules are not applicable to some facilities, based on the bilingual education at the school. But now if your community is 5% or more, then your notice you will need to translate that notice. Also for the, to follow up on the other question that I don't recall anymore.
Will if we send those translations into TCEQ, the plain language and the NORI and NAPTI, does TCEQ publish them on their website and that satisfies the requirement or not?
No, the permittee will still be responsible for doing those publications on the newspaper. What we're going to be posting is a copy of what you publish on our website. So it will be posted on the website, the NORI and the NAPTI and the plain language summaries and any translated information that was submitted with it. But
we're still required to publish in a newspaper. And
yes.
If there's not a newspaper, then we can't do that.
Well, if there's no newspaper, then you still continue with the waiver. And so we will publish, at that point, then TCEQ will publish the notice on the website.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Ashley Lewis with Plummer. Is there a template for the plain language summary that's out there or will come out so we have some better idea of what exactly you're looking for?
Yes, our applications have been updated on our website, and you could find them in the administrative report of the applications. They're in there already. There's an example of the plain language in English and Spanish.
All right, any other questions on that topic before we move on? Okay. Thanks again, Monica. Appreciate that. Next up, we have several program-specific updates that we want to give to you, and I'll turn it over to Preet to start us off.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Greg. All right. I hope you can hear me all right. I'm here today to provide update on House Bill 2771 implementation activities. A little bit of background information. HB 277, which is the House Bill 2771, provided TCEQ with the permitting authority for discharge into surface water in the state for oil and gas production and exploration facilities during 2018 legislative session. Land application activities were not transferred to TCEQ under House Bill 2771 and remain under Texas Railroad Commission's permitting authority. TCEQ obtained Tpds, which is Texas Pollutant Discharge Elimination System authorization from EPA in January 2021 via a revised Memorandum of Agreement, MOA. Since the transfer, TCEQ have amended the Hydrostatic Test Discharge General Permit, TXG 670000, have amended and reissued with the effective date of October 21, 2020, which now includes crude oil and natural gas hydrostatic test discharges. Additionally, TCEQ is also developing two general permits. One is a Tpds general permit TXG 310000 to replace two EPA general permits, NPDES general permit TXG 26 and TXG 33, and it will also replace individual Railroad Commission authorizations. And the second general permit TCEQ is developing is state-only general permit WQG 28, and this will replace the individual authorization requirement under Railroad Commission. So now I'll talk a little bit more in detail about the two general permits we are developing and a little bit on their timelines. TXG 31, which will authorize discharges from onshore stripper well facilities, coastal facilities, and territorial sea facilities within 3 miles of Texas coastline. This permit will combine and replace EPA General Permit TXG 26, and which expired on February 17, 2017, and EPA General Permit TXG 33, which expired on 7/30/2017. TCEQ, currently we have shared the draft permit with the stakeholders for review and comments, and right now we received all the comments and we are currently reviewing those comments. After this step is completed, we will be submitting the draft general permit to EPA, Region 6, for their 90-day review. And we are hoping to have that step submitted to EPA by the end of June, beginning of July. The anticipated public notice date is for TXG 31 is October 2022, and that will commence the public comment period, which will be from October to November 2022. And our anticipated commission adoption timeline is next year, early spring, March and April 2023. We have completed the development of the forms required to get the authorization under this general permit already, and they will be available available on our website as soon as we have this general permit issued, which will be in next spring. And the second general permit, which is a state-only general permit, WQG 280000, which will authorize the discharge from outer continental shelf facilities between 3 and 10 miles of Texas coast. This is a state-only general permit and will authorize discharges to the surface water in the Gulf of Mexico. And we are currently actively developing this draft general permit, but the TCEQ did not receive the NPDES authority for this between 3 mile and 10.2 mile from the coast. So a permittee still needs to apply for an NPDES general permit with EPA to get an authorization. And we are both these general permits we are developing will proceed on a parallel path. So we are anticipating the public notice time frame for this WQG 28 somewhere in October, and the commission adoption timeline again in spring 2023, in March or April 2023. And we have completed the appropriate forms required for this authorization already, and they will be available once this permit is issued. Lastly, I'm going to provide a little update on the issued or pending oil and gas permits we have. Currently, we have issued 23 general permits under hydrostatic test general permit for oil and gas facilities, and we have 15 pending individual oil and gas permits at various different permitting stage within Water Quality Division. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Preet? All right, thank you very much. Next up, we have Paul Broshire with the Homeland Security update. Paul?
Thank you, Greg. As we know, part of our yearly duties are collecting annual site and contact information, which we have to send to the EPA START contractor for emergency response efforts for hurricanes and natural disasters. Previous years, this was done through a hard copy submittal where companies would submit to us and we would do the data entry. A few years ago, we decided to start developing an electronic portal. That electronic portal, what we call the WQ EPS, or Water Quality Emergency Preparedness System, is online as of this year. It is a STEERS module, which means you will need a STEERS ER ID in order to use the module. It will also, if you already have a STEERS ID, this module can be added to your account so that you can use it and not have to create a separate ID for the different modules. As for since 2022 was the first update year for the use of the WQ EPS, we are accepting both paper and electronic submittals. This year, we have mailed out 2,500 update requests, both through electronic mail and through hard copy mail. To date, we have received roughly 50% response. Some of the, and I believe that's hard copy, we have had about a third of that updated through the electronic portal. Currently, staff is busily entering data through that was received hard copy, and they are inputting it through the internal data application that we have within TCEQ. It is imperative that we get this in because hurricane season is right around the corner. I mean, it's June and it's actually started already, and we will run through November with it. But we need to get this information in and updated. So if you have received a request and it is actually applicable to you, it is rather imperative that we get this in. This is a benefit to the companies so that we have the information, we know who to talk to, and we know what the issues are when we call during an emergency response, and it'll get the help that you guys need a lot faster than what it would do if this information isn't in and we're not making the calls or getting the information that we can turn over to the emergency management coordination efforts to get generators or other chemicals or whatever other equipment or supplies that you may need. So it is imperative that this is done in a timely manner because, like I said, we've already had a couple disturbances in the Gulf, and we hopefully can avoid hurricanes coming our way, but I kind of think that's highly unlikely, so we do need to update this information. The fastest way to update the information is through the electronic portal. It'll save time and efforts on both parts. If you have a steers ID and need to update one, or you're having trouble with it, by all means contact us and we can help you get the information and get to steers and make sure that steers works for you in order to update the information. But that is the fastest way, and it's the easiest on all efforts to try to get it in. One of the big pluses of the electronic portal is that you do not need to update anything that hasn't changed. All you need to supply in the electronic portal is what has changed. You will review all the information that is currently existing for the site, and you will create a record for the 2022 year. You can update it as many times or as often as you need to throughout the year to make sure that the information's there and it's active and current. So it's a plus to do it electronically. So that's about what I have for my update on this Homeland Security.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions about that? Okay, well, we'll move on to the last program-specific topic, and that'll be given by Peter Schaefer.
Thank you. I was going to sing the song Changes by David Bowie to start off my talk, but given the audio problems, I'll refrain this time. But Changes really kind of sums up what's going on with the 401 program. And for those of you that aren't familiar, the 401 program is our certification program where we review federal 404 permit applications to ensure that they are compliant with our Texas surface water quality standards. And these are often referred to as the dredge and fill permits. If you caught my talk at Trade Fair, I'm going to kind of go over some of those same things. And so you know there were a lot of changes, and there's actually been a change since then. And it's not even a month since Trade Fair, so things are happening quickly. And these changes are a result of federal rule changes, litigation in federal courts, and executive orders. So just to give a little background, back in 2000, we signed an MOA with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and from 2000 to 2020, that MOA worked well for both of us. We work closely with the Corps as we're doing these 401 certifications, and that included a decision document, which was something that only the state of Texas the Corps in the state of Texas were only providing that in Texas. Other states were not doing that. They weren't given the decision document. And then in September of 2020, the EPA's 401 certification rule became effective, and that changed everything, and so the MOA was no longer effective. And this new rule required applicants to provide TCEQ with a pre-filing meeting request, and then not 30 days less than, 30 days later or more, they could provide a 401 certification request, and then within 15 days of TCEQ receiving that 401 certification request, the Corps would provide TCEQ with a reasonable period of time in which to provide that 401 certification, and that time is not to exceed 1 year. So we had to adjust our process to meet that rule. There was no break-in period. It was the rule's effective, and you have to start this process immediately. So we had to scramble to keep up. So we changed our process. We had a lot of meetings with the Corps to figure out how best our two programs could work together. And they've worked nicely with us, and I really appreciate that coordination with them. Then in January of 2021, Executive Order 13990 came out, and to address this executive order, EPA conducted multiple virtual learning sessions, listening sessions, and they published a notice of intent to reconsider and revise the Clean Water Act Section 401 certification rule. Then in October of 2021, a U.S. District Court of California vacated the 401 certification rule that was effective in 2020, and then the rule went back to the effective rule, which was promulgated in 1971. So we changed our processes again, but we only had to go through some slight modifications this time, and that was to no longer require applicants to provide a pre-filing meeting request. Just to ensure that we got the information we needed, we still were requiring a 401 certification request. And we were still trying to meet the Corps' goal of 60 days for the reasonable period of time, which was their standard reasonable period of time that they were giving us when that rule was effective. And all the 401 certifications provided under that 2020 rule remained effective. So throughout these changes, our 401 certifications are looking to ensure that our water quality standards are met. And the federal rule changes did not affect our water quality standards, so there's no effect. So those certifications that were issued under the old rules, those remain effective, and there's no need to come back for another certification. I missed something here. Anyway, in 2022, the U.S. Supreme Court, here it is. In 2022, the U.S. Supreme Court reinstated EPA's 401 certification rule. So then we were back, and this was just in April, just a couple months ago. So then we're back to requiring pre-filing meeting requests. So that was really the only change there. And so the update since Trade Fair is just on the 2nd of this month, EPA issued a pre-publication version of the new rule that was released. So this is in response to that executive order that was issued in 2021. So this pre-publication version is out for folks to review and just kind of get an early view. But again, that's pre-publication, so that rule is coming soon. And one interesting thing about that rule is they said that one of the things that they're proposing is that the Corps would provide the issuing agency, so that in our case that's TCEQ, provide them with a decision document from which to make that 401 certification decision. So during our MOA, for those 20 years, like I said, we would get a decision document, and Texas was the only state that got that document. I often said that's because Texas is the only state that's doing it right, and so I think we're getting a little validation there. But those are my updates. If you have any questions, please let me know. And also take a look at our webpage. You can just Google 401 Certifications Texas, and it'll get you to our webpage. We've got pre-filing meeting request forms and 401 certification forms.
Thank you, Peter. Any questions about the 401 certification program? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to our next segment of the meeting, which are general permit updates. And I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca Villalba here. I meant to say earlier that Shannon Gibson unfortunately couldn't be with us this afternoon, so Rebecca is kindly going to take on her updates. So actually, she's going to be doing the next 5 or all of the general permit updates. So go ahead, Rebecca.
Okay. Please make sure you get comfortable, get your drinks, snacks. We're here for another hour of me speaking. No, just kidding. I'll make it quick. So I'll first start with the construction general permit update for the stormwater program. We're currently working on the 2023 renewal. The permit regulates stormwater discharges from construction activities, and it expires March 5th of next year. So we started the permitting process for the renewal last September. We had a stakeholder meeting in October, and at that stakeholder meeting, we presented preliminary proposed changes that we already had based on either internal review, based on comments that we received through the permit cycle from permittees, from related entities, from consultants, as well as from the questions that we get, when we're on phone duty. Another driver for our construction general permit changes are also the changes that EPA has in their national stormwater construction general permit. So during the renewal process, EPA also is renewing their permit, so we get to see the draft proposed permit as well as the final permit during the process. So some of the major changes that we considered are prohibiting the construction of operation of a facility that is licensed for the storage of high-level radioactive waste in accordance with House Bill 7 that was passed during the 87th Legislative Special Session. So we're also clarifying that large construction site notices must be maintained until final stabilization is achieved. That's a concern that we're receiving from MS4s. Also clarifying that compliance with the permit is required until termination of the authorization. So until a notice of termination is submitted, compliance with the permit is required, and if not things are not being done, then of course then they're subject to enforcement. Also, we're including additional requirements for site maps to include in the site maps a description to clearly identify property boundaries, and soil disturbing activities must be also noted, including the phases that you have, including demolition activities. A full list of the proposed changes that we have are included on our Stormwater Stakeholders Group webpage, so feel free to look at that. I'm not going to give you the whole webpage link because it's pretty long, but it's permitting stormwater stakeholders group. So you should be able to go to our stormwater webpage, the first one, and you will find a link to that webpage where you'll find the presentation from the stakeholder meeting as well as a handout with all of our proposed changes. So where are we with the permit now? We received the stakeholder comments, we went through internal review, we revised the permit, and we have sent it to EPA for the review. So we sent the draft permit to EPA Region 6 on April 14th for their 90-day review. According to our MOA that we have with them, they have 90 days to review the permit, provide comments, objections. Hopefully they'll approve it. And then their 90-day comment period ends on July 13th. So we still have about a month before they send us comments. Once we receive comments, even if it's an interim objection, we need to address those comments that they require us to do. If, from our past, if it's not in the rule, if it's not required, we really are not going to, take them. We're going to have to work with EPA and coordinate a balance and how to move forward with that. But this permit then will move forward. Once we get EPA approval, we'll move forward to the public notice where we will publish in the Texas Register and in a couple of newspapers across the state for the 30-day public comment period. So we're looking at that sometime late fall, early winter of this year, towards the end of this calendar year. And then if everything goes well, we're hoping to go to a commissioner's agenda next February, late February, so that the permit can be reissued by March 5th of 2023, so that construction in Texas can continue. So, of course, this permit by far is the one that regulates the most entities. Currently, we almost have 30,000 entities regulated under this stormwater general permit. Any questions on this permit? Okay. So moving on to the multi-sector general permit, this is the industrial stormwater general permit that regulates industrial activities under 30 sectors. This permit was reissued and renewed last August 2021. So you're asking, why are you giving me an update, Rebecca, if you already issued this? Well, the requirement in this permit is that every monitoring data that is required by this permit need to be submitted electronically. As Eric is mentioning, we're moving to electronic age, and so of course we are a little behind on certain things, and other things we're further ahead. But everybody that's really under the MSGP that's required to monitor and report needs to submit their data through the NetDMR system. So the NetDMR system is EPA's system where you're going to submit all your information. Well, the system, in our system, we talk to EPA. We flow data to EPA's ISIS system, which then flows into NetDMR. We were having some issues because our permit is very complex. We are one of the most complex permits in the country regarding so many sectors, and then even within the sector, so many SIC codes, and then some SIC codes, they apply to you, sometimes they don't apply to you. So all those nuances were not, ready last permit cycle. Then this permit cycle, we got all of that ready, and we were trying to flow to EPA, and then we had a hiccup. So we've been working with IRD and EPA headquarters, since last November. And I'm happy to say that after a lot of hard work, finally we are moving to the very last steps, that we are now finally moving all your MSGP information, permittee, what sector you are, the permit requirements, your flow, how often, not your flow, your effluent limits, your benchmark monitoring data, all of that information that's required by the permit for each entity is being flowed to EPA right now as we speak to go into production. So then shortly we will go ahead and have it available for you to go into NetDMR, get your account, and go ahead and start submitting your data. Of course, you're not required to submit data until March 31st of next year. For this March 31st, we did issue a 60-day episodic waiver. So every entity received that waiver, and we needed your information to be submitted via a paper DMR. So we got bombarded with a lot of paper DMRs that were due. But hopefully by next month, and moving forward, now you'll be able to submit all your information electronically. There are videos already in the the NetDMR webpage, but our small business and local government assistants, together with us in my team, we are going to provide a webinar that's going to be then available to you, specifically MSGP entities, that then you can watch over and over again as you need to make sure that you submit that DMR data that you need to for your effluent limitations from the federal guidelines, your benchmark monitoring data, or your hazardous metals data. Any questions on the MSGP? Okay, so moving forward to the updates that Shannon could not be available right now to provide. The first one is the pesticide general permit. That's TXG 870000. That permit authorizes the application of pesticides into or over, including near waters of the United States, for the control of mosquito or other insect pests, vegetation and algae pests, animal pests, area-wide pests, and forest canopy pests. So all pests. The Commission renewed the permit October 20th of last year. So the news here is that the permit renewal has ended. The last day for any entity that was covered under the existing general permit, the notice of intent for renewal was due on beginning of February. So that has passed and ended, so hopefully everybody renewed on time. If not, then there are, consequences to not having an authorization, so hopefully everybody has their authorization. So that's all the update regarding that permit. The next permit is Petroleum Bulk Stations and Terminals General Permit, TXG 340000. This permit authorizes the discharges of facility wastewater, contact stormwater, and stormwater associated with industrial activities into or adjacent to water in the state from petroleum bulk stations and terminals. So this permit also expires right now this year, October 24th of 2022. So we are currently in the renewal process. The draft permit was approved by EPA earlier this year, January 18. So then we moved forward to the public notice process. We published for the 30-day comment period on March 25th, so just a couple of months ago. We did not receive any comments, so that's always good. And so now we're hoping to go ahead and schedule this for adoption in during the commissioner's agenda in August. So please, keep an eye on that for that petroleum box stations and terminals general permit. The next update is regarding the concrete batch plant general permit, TXG 110000. This permit authorizes the discharge of facility wastewater and stormwater associated with industrial activities into or adjacent to water in the state from ready-mixed concrete plants, concrete production plants, and their associated facilities based on the SIC code. So this permit was also issued and adopted October 20th of last year. Facilities had until February 5th to renew their authorization, so this is just an update to let you know that the renewal period has ended. If you did not submit your renewal application, then you will need to submit an application for a new permit. And of course, the new thing for this is that the NOI needed to be submitted electronically, so from now on, any new entities will have to apply through our e-permits, that is access through STEERS. Any questions on that I can maybe answer? If not, I'll pass them along to Shannon and she will respond to you.
Let me interject real quick. All right, thank you, Rebecca. Just a quick pause here before we move on to the rule updates segment. Just wanted to remind folks who are watching online that we are still having issues with the audio, unfortunately. We apologize for that. If you joined us online a little after the introduction of the meeting, I just wanted to let you know and remind those who already were on that the captioning service is still operational, and hopefully that's helping you track with what we're doing here, but also let you know that we are recording the meeting, including the audio, and that will be available later after the meeting is adjourned. And if you do have any questions on any of these topics that we're covering, you're welcome to email those to us, and we will respond to them during the meeting. And again, that email address is outreach@tceq.texas.gov. And I guess, again, just looking over to Danielle here, be sure to let me know if any questions do come in, and we'll address them. So thank you, and I will turn it back over to Rebecca for the rule updates.
Thank you for that intermission. Okay, so the next rule update, the first one that I'm going to provide is regarding 30 TAC Chapter 311, which is the sand mining in the San Jacinto River Watershed rule. So just we have been briefing you every quarter on this rule. So this was based on two rule petitions that we received. One was from the Texas Aggregate and Concrete Association, TACA, and the other one was from the Lake Houston Area Grassroots Flood Prevention Initiative. So they filed two petitions, separate but pretty identical, and about the same issue regarding concerns that they had in the San Jacinto River watershed from sand mining operations. The petitions came in June 2020, and the petitions required a rule that would establish best management practices for commercial sand mining and other lawful purposes within a very specific area of the San Jacinto River watershed. So the new rule is in Subchapter J of 30 TAC Chapter 311, known as the Watershed Protection Rules, and the rule defines that specific area. We also have a map in the rule and also a map on our website, so you can see exactly what the watershed is. The final rule was adopted December 15 of 2021, and we published in the Texas Register, and the effective date of the rule was January 6 of this year. Sand mining facilities have almost a little bit shy of a month. They have until July 5th of this year, just next month, to demonstrate compliance with the new rules. So that's why, we're bringing this to this meeting right now. Make sure if you're a sand mining facility that is registered as an APO and you are within that defined watershed, then you have till July 5th to demonstrate compliance with the rules. We are also in the process of working with small business local government assistance together with them to develop any guidance that might be needed to make sure that the tools are available for the map for you to see exactly where you might be. If you are in that borderline of that watershed, we're trying to come up with tools that you can easily identify if you are within the watershed or not. As part of the petition and the rulemaking, we also were directed to develop a best management practices document. So it is the document that was already finalized and is published, is Regulatory Guidance Document 555. And that includes the best management practices that are required to be implemented by that rule. So even though the term has regulatory guidance in it and it's a guidance document, it is required by the rule. And so that that document is already published on our website, and you can go ahead and download it. Again, it's RG 555, and it was published on November of last year. So just make sure that by July 5th, sand mining facilities in that area demonstrate compliance with the rule. So the other updates that we move on forward with is 30 TAC Chapter 305. That is what we call the consolidation of Tpds program regulations. So specifically, Chapters 308, 314, and 315 were moved to Chapter 305, Subchapter P, where we contain the adoption by reference of the Federal Texas Pollutant Discharge Elimination System regulations. So additionally, Chapter 308, Subchapters C and J were repealed in response to what we normally do as a quadrennial rule review that's done every 4 years of our existing rules. So the Commission adopted this rule on March 30th of this year, so that consolidation and that movement of those rules is final. Also, the update regarding 30 TAC Chapter 321 and 351 was to remove obsolete chapters. So during the quadrennial review, we identified that there were a lot of things that could be, removed. So we repealed Chapter 321, subchapters E, F, and L, and for Chapter 351, subchapter D. Chapter 321, subchapters E, F, and L, and subchapter D are now considered obsolete. And this was also adopted by Commissioner's agenda on March 30th. The last update is regarding 30 TAC Chapter 7, the Aquaculture Memorandum of Understanding with the Texas Department of Agriculture. So we amended the MOU with the Texas Department of Agriculture and the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department to remove the Texas Department of Agriculture from that MOU and to update any existing provisions. We had a comment period that ended January, and the Commission adopted this revised MOU under 30 TAC Chapter 7, April 27th of this year. So those are the updates on the rule changes that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate that. Any questions on those topics that she mentioned? All right. Well, certainly last but not least, we are going to have an update from Louis Herron on the Chapter 217 rules. Take it away, Louis.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm going to give a very short update. Unless y'all want a long update, we can go for a couple hours. But I will kind of just hit the highlights. We are getting real aggressive again in working on the 217 updates. We were aggressive a couple years ago. Pandemic hit. And it's not an excuse, but all of a sudden the state of Texas started submitting a ton of work to us. And we couldn't work on everything at the same time, so 217 has been worked on, but it's not been worked on aggressively. We are proposing to start working on it aggressively, and our new timeline looks at, we hope to go to the Commission about next year around this time. We are updating several of the chapters. Some of the things that we are proposing to do is we're looking at the UV section. We're starting to have some problems with regrowth on some of the UV systems in the state. We're going to see how we can solve those problems. On collection systems, we are trying to figure out how we're going to handle some of the new trends that are coming down. There are some cities that are looking at putting in tiny homes, micro homes, which means we're not going to have a lot of water. We're still going to have the waste, how we're going to move it. We have developers in West Texas now looking at putting in gray water systems in all their homes. Standard collection systems will not be able to handle our current design, so we're looking at those type of things. We are looking at updating the nutrient section in the design criteria because we're starting to see more and more plants getting nutrient limits in the future. And we're also seeing trends on the water side that are now on the lead and copper rule that they have. They're using orthophosphates, which now means we'll probably have more phosphates in our in our water going to the plants. So that's going to be a thing that we have to worry about. We're also looking at updating the standards on the MBR, SBR systems. So those are some of the major portions of the design criteria we're looking at. There are other sections, and a lot of it's wordsmithing, just to make sure we have terminology that people use all over the country, not just down here, because we have found some engineers coming down here that do not understand the terms that we use in our rules. They have different rules, or they use different terminology in different parts of the country. So we're looking at that. The other thing that we're looking at is we're going to start holding stakeholder meetings once we finish a draft chapter, just so we can start getting buy-in early, seeing what people's comments are. And so we're going to be, hopefully later this summer, probably towards the end of the summer, start having stakeholder groups meetings on subchapters as we get them finished. And I have a lot more things to say, but I'll do it real short and finish right there.
Any questions for Lewis? All right, and actually that was the last topic we wanted to update you on, but we did schedule another question and answer session during this time. If anyone thought of anything else during the course of the meeting that you wanted to ask about any of the earlier topics or anything else that might be on your mind, now's the time to ask it. So, anyone? Yes.
I wrote it early on, so I'm trying to find it.
That's all right. I think Susan, sorry, sorry. Go ahead.
Hi, I have it is based on the Sunset report that just came out and the pre-application mandatory meeting. This is, if there's requirement, if y'all take on the requirement that the Sunset report said of having a post and prior and post meeting to all applications, I can't imagine what that will do to y'all's staff's time, much less mine. I have 12, so then plus the pre-meeting, I counted 44 meetings in 1 year that I would have to do additional to my workload. So I can't imagine how y'all would do that. What is your vision for that? Well, I guess my first question is, A, are you going to incorporate that and do it? And B, if so, when you have to do it, how do y'all have a thought or a process on that?
Thanks for the question. Good question. It's still too early to tell. The agency is working on its formal responses right now, and we have provided, estimates of impacts if we were to be required to do that to our internal Sunset folks. But it's still too early to know what that would look like and how it would be implemented, assuming the legislature does move forward with that recommendation.
So it's been a long minute since we've all been back together. It's really nice to see everybody. Just a general question, are all the areas of the campus back open as usual, or are there still some limitations?
Yeah, I believe that all the areas of the agency are open to the public at this point. I think most work groups are on a hybrid remote schedule, and so, depending on what day you want to visit, there may be different staffing situations in a given division or section. But for the most part, yeah, I think across the board, the whole agency is open to the public.
Anyone else have any questions?
Hey, thanks everyone for all the updates. This is a general question, I guess, in regards to the streamlining process. Have there been any talks or any ideas about streamlining the public participation side of the permitting process?
There haven't been. Not really. I mean, you have suggestions?
Being able to view permits and those kind of things, permit applications, rather, electronically would be really helpful. Working here in Austin, I may get a call from somebody in another part of the state that's got a question about a potential permit in their area, and I can't necessarily go to the library to look it up, and sometimes I come up here and the permit's not available, and being able to view the permits electronically would be great.
We agree. That's one of the reasons, kind of long term, that we've asked for electronic applications, because it doesn't just support our work processes, but I think going forward and looking forward, if we're receiving those, it makes it much easier to make them available to the public. I know that there are other permitting programs who do it. I came from one where we post them online, and we received those directly from consultants prior to posting. I want to say that Office of Waste has consultants post those online on their own web pages. So there are permitting programs that do that. Each one does it a little bit differently, but that's a place we'd like to get to. But right now, I mean, we have made some progress on receiving electronic applications from our regulated community, but there's still a ways to go.
I have just two questions for the pre-application meetings. One, the cheat sheet, Erica, that you had mentioned, is that available on the TCQ website, or do we need to contact permit writers individually to ask for a copy of that?
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Kira. The cheat sheet for the pre-application meetings and stuff, Feroz, is that available online?
Not yet.
Okay.
But at least you can contact me anytime for municipal permit.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing to every permit. I contact people outside. Whenever they contact me about the pre-application, we have the generic form that you can fill out, and then we can at least wait for 2-3 weeks, because most of the time is also our resource issues, so we can help you out,
Okay. And so if it's a domestic permit, contact you. If it's an industrial, contact Mike or somebody on the industrial.
Yeah, actually, you know what? This will be a great time for y'all to meet our new section manager of the wastewater permitting section, Matthew. So please feel free to reach out to him, and he can connect you as needed, okay? So Matthew, say hi to everybody, and let him be your point of contact, okay?
All right. Hi, everybody. Sorry I came in a little bit late. Traffic was something. But yeah, thank you all for coming. And any issues relating to pre-application, you can call me, you can call the team leaders, and we'll take it from there. Thank you.
And then just one other question on the mandatory meetings. The permit writer that would be in the meeting answering technical questions, will they be the same permit writer that gets assigned to the permit?
That's a great question. Can't really say at this time. Work always changes hands when necessary. But whoever is at the pre-application meeting will be knowledgeable, will be able to answer general questions about the permitting process, answer any questions for, if it's industrial-related things, municipal-related things. So you're in good hands, no matter who's at that pre-application meeting. And then the permit writer will definitely take you through the full process once that person is assigned.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to circle back on the plain language summary. That has not been updated on the admin report that's accessible to the public, that Form 1053. It was updated in May of 2021, so it is not available to us.
Is this you're referencing for the domestic or the industrial?
Domestic.
Okay, we'll take a look into that to see if, what's happening on that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? And none online? Okay, great. All right, well, I think the only other thing I wanted to mention before we call it a day, at least for this meeting, is that we'll, of course, have our next quarterly meeting in August 23rd of 2022 this year at same time, 1:30 p.m., and I think same place as far as I know. And, it'll be in person, or the plan is to have it in person if the public health situation changes for the worse and we need to readjust. We'll certainly let you know ahead of time as best we can. But yeah, the plan is to be back here in 3 months or a little over. So if there's not any other questions or last minute things to mention, we'll just go ahead and adjourn the meeting. But thank you again for coming. It's good to see your faces again. And like I said, pass the word that we're back. We're back in person. So again, thanks, and hope you have a good rest of the afternoon. Appreciate it.